So bottom line is, Bill, in my view, we are in an unprecedented moment in American history. We have got to act in an unprecedented way. And I am working with other senators and members of Congress on what will be an unprecedented piece of legislation to try to save this country in such a difficult moment.
We have to act in an unprecedented way to save this country. That was Bernie Sanders' message last night on Real Time with Bill Maher. Bernie was basically putting it out there that this is a historic crisis, one of the biggest challenges the modern United States and the modern world has ever faced, and that if you want to get through it without leaving hundreds of millions of people behind, you need to act in a historic manner. You need to act swiftly and boldly to defend the interests of regular people. That's the only way America and the only way other countries are going to get through this crisis. So as I noted yesterday on the channel, Bernie's plan includes several bold policies: a universal basic income, $2,000 a month for everyone for the crisis. It includes payroll protection to help companies keep workers on the job. It includes adding everyone that needs healthcare onto Medicare for all health services for the duration of the crisis. It includes rent and mortgage protection to keep people in their homes. It includes the Defense Production Act being used to ensure that goods and services are produced when they are needed, even if they aren't profitable for private corporations. It includes much more than that, lots of aid for the states and for the municipalities. But the point is, Bernie Sanders is proposing exactly what America needs right now: a historic piece of legislation for a historic challenge. And Bernie going on to Bill Maher and really hammering home why this is needed was really crucial to see, because it's a big audience, and at a time where America is aching for leadership, Bernie Sanders is providing it. Donald Trump isn't providing it, and Joe Biden isn't providing it either. And the Democratic congressional leadership and the Republican congressional leadership, when they did agree on an aid deal, it was far, far, far more advantageous for already wealthy corporations than it was for struggling working middle class and poor people. That's the reality. And so Bernie Sanders is very clear that we need a second bill. We need a second approach here that takes care of regular people. Because as I noted yesterday, when you take care of regular folks, not only do you ensure that everyone has the justice and dignity they need as citizens, but you also ensure that the economy remains vibrant and stable and healthy. Because when regular folks don't worry about their homes, don't worry about their income, don't worry about their jobs, don't worry about their health care, they can participate in regular day-to-day economic activity. And if that day-to-day economic activity isn't coming from poor people, from working class people, from middle class people, who together form 99% of the American society, then the economy will not only falter, it will utterly collapse. And it might be very difficult to get it started again even after this crisis subsides. When it's done, you want people to get back on their feet as quickly as possible. And only Bernie's vision does that. Donald Trump's vision won't do that. And yes, some people will say that Joe Biden on his website has a plan for this crisis, but it's a bunch of nothing. It's all of these things that he might end up doing when he's president. But the fact of the matter is that Joe Biden isn't hammering in on the core flaws of American society as it exists and how those core flaws need to be dealt with during this crisis and afterwards. The crucial one, and we've talked about this, is that Joe Biden still thinks that private insurance models or that a hybrid public option model is the way to go, when everyone who is reasonable is noting that it is failing right now. That private/hybrid model would be utterly disastrous and is utterly disastrous at this moment, when tens of millions of people will be losing their healthcare coverage. And that even if a public option did exist right now, shifting people onto that option would be a bureaucratic nightmare during a crisis. The World Health Organization, a scientific body, Joe Biden claims to love science. He says that unlike Donald Trump, he supports science. The World Health Organization notes that one of the things that you can do to prevent crises like this in the future and to mitigate their effects when they do happen is to have universal healthcare. Universal, everyone covered. Joe Biden's ideal vision, guys, leaves 10 million at least without healthcare. Even under Joe Biden's ideal world, the United States will not have universal healthcare. It just won't. It won't. And Biden has said he would veto any attempts to create a universal system, such as Medicare for all, even if it managed to get through the House and Senate, say under the leadership of Senator Bernie Sanders. Joe Biden is demonstrating, guys, that insofar as he has a plan, it's totally inadequate. And on social media, all he's doing is tweeting platitudes and talking about vague things. And that's when he's not demonstrating his cognitive decline and his dementia. Joe Biden has nothing for the American people in this moment, and Bernie has everything for the American people in this moment. Bernie Sanders showed last night when he talked to Bill Maher that he has the plan with detailed objectives to help regular folks get through this, and in so doing, help the broader economy stay afloat during this really, really tough time. But more than that, Bernie Sanders is able to articulate that as part of a broader vision, that if this really is a historic challenge for the American Republic, and the last historic challenge like it may have been the Great Depression, then the only way you get through it is with a new deal that recognizes that the status quo doesn't work for regular people, and that even after the crisis, we can't go back to the old ways. Bernie's plan is not some sort of secretive effort to spring socialism on people. It's very, very openly trying to introduce people to the reality that democratic socialism is what they need now and what they're going to need after. And much like the New Deal, which forever reshaped the American society, even if it wasn't everything needed, it made America better forever. Bernie Sanders' vision, if it's implemented now and if you preserve much of it after the crisis, will create a far more just, equal, dignified, and humane society for regular Americans. The primary process isn't over. Bernie Sanders has not lost. Joe Biden is not the nominee yet. There is still time to dump Joe Biden and his failure to be a leader during this crisis and his failure to accept the scientific evidence that single payer is what's needed right now, and replace him with Bernie Sanders, the only man that can bring a democratic socialist message to the American people to get them through this crisis, to prevent future crises, and when we get through this, to leave a better world than existed when the crisis started.